5 o'clock, and that is the time for the Board of Directors special meeting for the Redevelopment Agency of Murray City. And welcome. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, welcome to those in the audience, and also present on the dais is Brooke, Mayor Hales, G.L. Critchfield, our attorney, the RDA board members, which is Paul Pickett, Pam Cotter, Scott Goodman, myself, Diane Turner, and Adam Hawk is on the line. Right, Adam?
I'm here.
Okay. All right, so we are all here. So for the agenda, the first thing we have is the approval of minutes for February 18th, 2025. Are there any changes, additions to the minutes from the board?
No, I didn't see any.
Okay. All right, I would appreciate that we have
I will make a motion.
a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of February 18th, 2025.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. And all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Are there
Aye.
any opposed? Okay, seeing none, we will approve those minutes, and we will now go to citizen comments. So all citizen comments are limited to 3 minutes or less, and email comments will be entered into the meeting record. And just to let you know, we did receive one email comment from Karina Johnson, and that will be entered into the meeting record.
And I have a second one as well.
Oh, you've also got one?
Yeah, I just haven't printed off, so I can send
Okay.
it to Jennifer and we can get it added in, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And who is that from?
Janice, Mr. Bell.
Okay, then we'll have that be also part of the meeting record. Okay, so I will open it to citizen comments. Remember, 3 minutes. So now is the time.
Yeah, there we go.
I can't.
Push it there. Oh, man. Okay. Could I ask a procedural question before my minutes are started?
What is that?
So with the agenda item number 3 as an action item, is that similar to a public hearing
No.
where public comments are not allowed after the
Now is your
presentation?
time for
Okay.
public comment.
All right. Okay. So I do have some questions that I hope will be clarified prior to the decision on voting of the resolution. A couple of the things that I've noticed after going through the developer's agreement. There's no purchase price mentioned for this Block 1 property that's owned by the city to Rockworth. If so, this is now even more than what Edlin asked when the surplus, because the surplus property is now being added to the Block 1 property. And at the Edlin open house, when Brett Hales was a city council member, he directly told me that no way was the city going to give away prime downtown property to a developer. So my question is, what has changed that 180-degree turn for who is now our mayor? Lack of transparency. Edlin did a lot to be fully transparent in order to receive support of the community. But right now, it seems that the city feels they've heard enough from the citizens. They have made a few concessions from the look that Edelin proposed, but this is our downtown and possibly a part of the most iconic part of our downtown. Doesn't that deserve public input and not what feels like could be a backroom deal? And the reason why I'm saying backroom deal is there are many details that aren't provided for in the development agreement that but now the RDA board is being asked to sign off before those details have been given. And some of those details are the purchase price for the city-owned portion of Block 1. If it's $0, say that. And the purchase price for the DAR properties isn't given because right now Rockworth is still purchasing it. But if they when they purchase it, and if the development is terminated, then the city is obligated to refund them the amount. And we don't even know what that amount is at this time. There's also at this point no estimate that I could see that's provided for moving the gas lines or the underground parking. Underground parking. With the very current experience that Murray has had with the Murray Theater, it's probably very clear that what could be found underneath Block 1 could be even more than just a hidden flowing creek. And even without taking into account the underground unknowns, does the city think that hiding the parking needs underground for this development is going to hide the additional expense that this will bring to the renters and commercial tenants? Okay, dismantling our nationally recognized historic downtown. I'm going to have to skip some. Is the city willing to pay a lot of money for an imitation downtown to replace the real one we already have? Are we willing to demolish a 3-story classical revival building, the Harker, and replace it with only a 2-story building that is just trying to look historic? Thank you, and I hope those questions can get answered.
Thank you.
Hello, Council, Mayor. Phil Markham, Murray City resident. It's a pleasure to have a chance to come up and talk to you this evening. I think you know how I feel about this project. Contrary to being a secret deal, there has been more discussion, more information gathering on this project than I think almost any project the city has undertaken or wanted to undertake, I hope. Historic downtown. The west side of State Street on our historic downtown is an embarrassment. The only purpose it serves is to notify people that are traveling south on State Street that they have entered Murray City because it looks like hell. Okay? This is a chance to do something, and it takes courage to do something. And you're working with a $100 million project. And if the city has to participate to make a $100 million investment in Murray, I can't see why they wouldn't do it. I really hope that you can find the courage, and it does take courage, to do this and have progress. I have great hopes for Murray. There's a lot of wonderful things going on right now. And I would hate to have that momentum stunted. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Phil.
Hello, Kathy White. I'm here as a citizen of Murray, not as anything chamber related. And I understand as far as the historic aspects of that development.
What is your name?
Oh, Kathy White. So
Thank you,
sorry,
Kathy.
Diane. I thought I said that. So anyways, but I'm here because, as you know, I have a business degree. I understand the concept of business, and I think it actually would be a great thing for Murray City to vote on, as far as to redevelop that and make it look better and bring more people, as far more businesses, and just make it be more an entertainment area. And that's what I personally think would be great for downtown right here. It's just, if you go to little towns across America, they go to main streets. That's where all the activity is. And right now it's an eyesore. It's an eyesore. And so that was what I would recommend as far as me as a citizen of Murray. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Council. Dale Cox, 912 West Bullion. I was going to say a lot of other things, but I get so tired of the accusations that are thrown at the men and women up here. This has not been a secret endeavor. This has had more sunlight on it than when I was on the council, we turned down one over there because of that very thing. And the city learned from that. We brought the citizens in after the plan was done, and they didn't like it, so we voted it down. We walked away from it. This hasn't been like that. It hasn't been like that from the start. There's been surveys, there's been committees to study this. We're never going to get a project that everybody likes unless you buy the property and you build your project. It's never going to happen. But this has more citizen input. There's less than half the apartments that the other one had. There's more street frontage. It does have a historic look to it, or it will have. But it's been vacant for 2 decades or more. There's been no tax revenue. There's been nothing generated by this property. Now, a city needs to be able to generate revenue, whether it be sales tax or property tax. And while this piece of prime property sits vacant, other people are picking up that. I'm picking it up as a taxpayer. Businesses are picking it up as property taxpayers. And we need to develop this and relieve the tax burden of the people of Murray. Start generating revenue from this. Start making it look like something that we're proud of instead of an empty, vacant lot. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Andrea Rich. I've lived in Murray for, I think, over 30 years. Paul's heard from me a few times in the last few months, but honestly, it's probably the second council meeting I've ever been to, and I feel it's important enough to come here because I'm tired of I don't feel like I should have an opinion or be upset about something unless I speak up. And I'm 100% for this project. I grew up in Holiday. I love what's happened in Holiday. I take my money, I go to Sugar House, I go to Mill Creek Commons, I go to Holiday to spend my money. I'd rather spend it here. I'd rather be able to bike downtown with we have a 6-year-old. I'd love to be able to do that and to eat at great restaurants, local restaurants, and have that feeling of community, because we don't really have that now. And so I appreciate what's going on. I read in the middle of the night, I started on page 142 last night, and I started to read like the whole legal agreement, and I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I would just love to have a place where our family could meet and eat and socialize. And I don't know if there's going to be a walkable area. I couldn't quite see that, but it would be nice if there was like in Holiday where they don't have, cars can't go by and it's safe for kids to run around a little bit. But that's how I see Murray, and I appreciate the historicness of the downtown, but I feel like it's time to make a new Holiday, like Holiday's preserved. It's still Holiday and it's been there forever and it's old. You still have that feeling. I think we can create that in Murray without having to give up, this project. Anyway, I'm all for it, so thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hi, Susan Wright. I'm a business owner and a citizen, and this is directly across the street, this eyesore from my businesses. And I'm kind of tired of homeless people out ranting and raving while my little ballet kids are going into my ballet school. I would love to see this project. I have probably told 20 people in Murray, council people, redevelopment people, find who did Holiday and bring them down and do this downtown to Murray. This is exactly what the people want. You know, we need to have eateries down here. We need to have entertainment. You have so many apartments around here. You already have the audience. You just need to put on a show down here and bring some things and put some things in for these people to spend money. Most of them could walk to it. So yes, I'm 100% for this. I have interest. It breaks my heart to see my old buildings look like hell, as Phil said, because it's true, they do. So I would like to see everything renovated nice and to keep those two old homes, the flower house, the Townsend house, and the little cottage. I would love to see those and everything integrated into something beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leanne Parker-Reed, citizen. I still have mixed feelings about all of this because we have had so many developments going on currently and still going on with a lot of high-density stuff. And I see that you're trying to do a little bit lower density, but there's still so much of that going on. So my concern is, yes, let's redevelop the area. It certainly needs it. It's been needing it. But have we listened to our citizens completely? Because some of them are saying no to a lot of this, and there's some of the things that they requested in all of these meetings and these opportunities that they came to have open houses. I was at several of those myself, and I still want to see a lot more community feel and a lot less high city density feel. So I'm just saying, take a good look at what's actually planned, what's actually going to happen, instead of saying it's all going to be beautiful because that's what the nice picture looks like. But let's just make sure we're getting what we want and what the citizens have asked for. Appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no more comments, we will continue. Thank you for those who made their comments. We really appreciate it. All right, we are now on number 3, which is an action item, and it is to consider a resolution authorizing the Redevelopment Agency of Murray City, the RDA, to enter into a development agreement with Murray City and Rockworth Companies for the redevelopment of property owned by the RDA and city, beginning at the southwest corner of 4800 South and State Street, and including a substantial portion of the property referred to as Block 1, located in Murray City, Salt Lake County, Utah. Chad Wilkinson will be presenting. Hi, Chad.
Hi, how are y'all? It's good
Welcome.
to see you. Just came from walking a whole bunch of mixed-use developments in Denver at the National Planning Conference. Got off a plane, what was it, Zach? 2 hours ago. So we're fresh with some great perspectives from other communities as well. But I think what I wanted to mention is that, you know, this has been an ongoing process. We've had a lot of discussions about this. I have mentioned this before, but I'm coming in at a bit toward the end of this discussion on Block 1, and to give my perspective as someone that was here before, that has a great desire to see Murray flourish. Before I get into the details of this, I think that the council's done a good job to give that perspective of someone that's worked in other communities. I think this really. We've got a developer that really has responded well to the comments that they've received and tried to address those in their design. So with that, I want to just walk through the development agreement. This picture, again, is of, and I want to give just a little bit of bearings, and my mouse doesn't want to go, but if you look on the foreground of that picture, that's State Street, of course. Going back, we've got Fifth Avenue here on the left-hand side of the picture, and then up there toward the top is 4800 South. So it's a pretty discrete chunk of downtown, doesn't include the entire downtown, and I think that's an important point to make as we continue this conversation tonight. As far as the development goes, again, this is another rendering of the buildings that have been proposed by the developer. These are exhibits to your development agreement. So as part of the development agreement discussion tonight, the developer is agreeing to build something that is substantially like what you're seeing tonight. There are some provisions of the development agreement that allow for some minor material changes as they go through the design process, but they're agreeing to build what you see on the screen tonight. As we go through, I'm having a hard time getting that to advance. We want to talk about what this development agreement does. The development agreement is the backbone of several other agreements that will come. It's important for us to have this development agreement in place before we create those other agreements. Those are appendages to this agreement. Those agreements will implement what you're approving or what you're considering tonight. I don't want to be presumptuous there, but what you're considering tonight as the council, this is the document that forms that backbone. Those other agreements will come to you at subsequent meetings. Those will implement the provisions that you're considering tonight as a council. So you can see that there's two disposition agreements. We've got two types of property. We've got properties that are owned by the RDA, properties that are owned by the city. We've got a participation agreement. The participation agreement talks about what you, as the RDA board, will agree to contribute to that. Now, all of those contributions are outlined in this development agreement tonight. What that participation agreement, again, will do is give the legal mechanism to implement that. So again, it's an appendage to this. And then there's a parking agreement. Now, the parking agreement is an interesting document because the parking agreement can't be entered into until after, should the developer decide to close on this property after going through some of the investigations. This parking agreement would come after that. So there is some time left, to look at some more of the details of that parking agreement. But again, the substance of that is included in your development agreement, what the developer is agreeing to do with the parking. So with that, I want to jump into the details of that agreement. So here are, whenever you have an agreement like this, there are things that the developer is contributing, there are things that the city would contribute. So in this case, the developer's contribution would be, again, they are under contract with that 0.42 acre DAR parcel that's part of this proposed development. They would contribute or construct 150 residential units, about 50,000 square feet of retail office space, some public and private parking, including surface and underground parking. They estimate their capital expenditure about $63 million. There are some sales tax and property tax generation that will change on the property as a result of the development. That is estimated to be about $526,000 annually. So that would be the annual sales and property tax generation. The estimated increase in increment generation, tax increment, is there at the bottom of that list, and that's $278,000 annually. In addition, as we've talked about in other meetings, the developer has agreed to build a project that's lower than the densities that are allowed by code. So building heights that are lower residential densities than what would be the maximum allowed by code. The developer has agreed to develop in accordance with our soon-to-be adopted form-based code. That's been a parallel process. We're nearing the end of that process. We anticipate that'll go to the Planning Commission in the next few weeks. One thing that's important to note on that form-based code topic is that the development agreement acknowledges that's not quite adopted yet, but as part of that development agreement, the developer has agreed to follow that form-based code. Okay, now that's what the developer is bringing to the table as part of this development agreement. The RDA, in the development agreement, to answer one of the questions that was asked, the development agreement anticipates that the RDA would contribute, which means that it would be given, not sold, to the developer. It would be given as part of their contribution of their to the development, that 2.34 acres of property that's owned by the RDA. There's a value that's attached to that. We've included that value. It's $3.69 million. That was a recent appraisal that was done. The RDA is also, as part of this development agreement, would be agreeing to give $3 million towards that underground parking structure. and up to 1.5 million for a gas line relocation. Now, that's an important part of this, but I want to say that the gas line relocation is really, there could be zero contribution from the RDA to that. That comes down to, as we have further discussions with the gas company, if they elect to do that work completely by themselves, there would be no contribution. This contribution would only occur if the work was actually performed by the developer, and there would be some need to reimburse them for that. Now, this is an important point because this gas line has existed for a long time. It's something that needs to be done. We are hoping that as we talk with Enbridge, we've had several discussions with Enbridge, formerly Dominion, about that project, and at this point, we anticipate that that work would probably not fall to the developer, but just in case it does, we wanted to have that provision in there. The city also would contribute, now that's the RDA's contribution, the city would contribute about 3/4 of an acre parcel that's just across the street from us, 1.21 million. I did skip another developer contribution, and that is as part of their parking structure, they would create 32 structured parking spaces that would be for city use. That would be, again, part of that parking agreement that will come to you at subsequent meetings, but they are agreeing to provide 32 structured parking spaces for city use. A couple of things that are also important is this part of this discussion. In the development agreement, it anticipates a 120-day feasibility period. What that period is an opportunity for the developer to go in and do some investigations related to environmental conditions of the property, see if there's anything that are further encumbrances, easements, other things that may be encumbering the property that we don't know about right now as they start to do that investigation. At the end of that period, the RDA, if the developer finds an encumbrance or an environmental condition that's not anticipated that they feel could make the project unfeasible, they come back to the RDA board and they can request that the RDA board contribute additionally to the project. That'll be completely at the RDA's discretion. The RDA can determine at that point that either they don't want to continue that to contribute more, or they can say, yes, we're willing to, or the developer can elect to just complete that work on their own and not come back to the RDA. So there's several different contingencies there. But again, and also the developer could simply say that after looking at those potential encumbrances, that the project just is unfeasible and they can terminate that agreement at that point. If the developer opts to terminate the agreement for any of those reasons that I talked about, then the agreement includes the purchase of that DAR building from the developer at their cost. So they have a contract with the owners of the DAR building. If they close on that property and they purchase that, and they've started that process of taking ownership of that building, and they come to this point in the feasibility period and they have not been able to overcome, either through RDA help or their own contributions, those environmental conditions, then they have the option to terminate the agreement, and then the city would be, the RDA, would be obligated to purchase that property from them at their cost. So those are some big things. We mentioned before that, well, first let me go through the site plan a little bit. There's been some discussion and some public comment about the site planning. I want to point out a few things that I think are important in this site plan. I'm hoping I can get my mouse to work here so I can use that cursor to point them out. If not, I'll try to just talk you through them. Okay, we're gonna get some tech support here. Thank you, Alvon. There we go. I gotta go a little further. There we go. Found it. Okay, good. So, just wanted to point out a couple of things that are significant about this. You can see that one of the development patterns that you can see along State Street is that these buildings have not been proposed as one continuous space. There are areas where they've included some outdoor patio space for outdoor dining, to create an active space. That was one concern that's been brought up by some of the residents about what really is there as far as outdoor activity, about activating the space from an outdoors perspective. There are several areas here, three or four of these areas that are earmarked right along State Street for some outdoor landscaped area. You can also see the rest of the site. This is where, so to give people bearings, State Street is here on the right-hand side, 4800 South to the north, Hanover to the west, and 5th Avenue is here along the south. It's important to note that this project is just, this block one is just part part of a greater plan for the entire downtown. This is not trying to implement the entire vision for downtown in one project, and I'm going to talk about why that's important in just a minute. But that's a general, so those who are curious about the boundaries, this project only covers that area, which is a portion of that area identified as Block 1. The city would still maintain ownership of this area, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute, as a public plaza area. This is the proposed underground parking. You can see it takes up a good chunk of that Block 1 area. And this is where those 32 city parking spaces are anticipated to be built. Okay, a couple of things that I want to talk about. There's been a lot of discussion about the open space and the public space. We agree with the public comments that's critical to our downtown planning. And we took a look at some of these great spaces that have been mentioned just to show you some of the size. So again, this is the area that we've designated on the right as an area for kind of this public plaza space. You know, we've got the Murray Mansion, the Townsend home, that small home there adjacent to the T. Rose Diner. These are all areas that would be part of a larger plaza area, which I'll show in just a minute. But just wanted to give you an idea of size. So this is 0.89 acres, just about 9/10 of an acre. This is an area that people I'm sure are familiar with in Holiday. That's about just a little over half an acre. So the area, and sometimes these sizes, when you're in the space, it's hard to perceive that, but that area that we've got earmarked for that plaza space is actually quite a bit larger than the area at Holiday that has that kind of public space and where they've taken the street and turned it into pedestrian space. Another example that's been given is Farmington Station in some of the emails again. Looking at that space, it's about 0.78 acres. We didn't include this because we're getting kind of into that movie theater and restaurant area that they have there, but if you include that, it's still a little bit smaller than the area that we've got earmarked for that plaza. As we add some additional public space that will be used for public gatherings and things in our downtown, that's this area just outside the window here, where we'll have Christmas tree lightings and other events. Again, we add another almost 3/4 of an acre. So again, just to give the council some perspective of what those areas look like. Again, sometimes when you're on the ground, it's hard to visualize that, but this is a fairly good-sized area that we have available for some public open space. And this is the vision that was, the design that was put together by a local landscape architect of what that could look like. You can see the potential to take that portion of Poplar Street and turn it into a pedestrian, shared pedestrian vehicle space if necessary, and create a really nice plaza right there. So it's a fairly large space. This plan anticipated areas for food trucks, for outdoor activity. So we think that's so important and critical to this as well, and we've tried to, as a city, account for that. Now, back to the original discussion, this development, the idea behind this development is that this is not necessarily meant to fill all those needs that we want as a city for our downtown. The downtown is a much larger area than just this Block 1. And just to give you an idea, of course, we've got a lot of area here in our historic downtown area. The area that's anticipated to be covered by our form-based code is approximately the area that I'm outlining. So that is a larger area. And, you know, issues that have been brought up, which are extremely important issues by the public, things like housing type, having a variety of housing types, all those important issues can be addressed as we continue to look at plans for redevelopment of our downtown. We want to have that variety of housing types. We want to have all those things that are desirable for a downtown. And this project is not meant to fulfill all those great things that we hope to see in our downtown. This is one piece of the puzzle, an extremely important piece of the puzzle that we, again, as staff, recommend that the council approve as a way to move forward on some of these great plans that the city's put together for our historic downtown. So I hope I answered most of the questions that I heard before. I think the bottom line is that, again, just to reiterate, this does involve contribution of city and RDA property. That's just contribution, not sale, as part of this, along with some additional RDA funds. I want to acknowledge the email that was sent that we talked about from Karina Johnson. I'm not going to read through every word of that, but some of the things that were brought up were green space, the types of housing, the importance of this, as part of the overall downtown, making downtown Murray a destination. Again, housing types. So I hope I've covered at least the points of her email without going through each and every one of those points and reading them. We also received another email while you all were in committee of the whole meeting from Clark Bullen. And again, I won't read that entire email on the record, but it did express general support for the ideas, acknowledging that there are still some things we need to work on, and we'll be looking at some of those other agreements as we go. So with that, staff is recommending that the RDA board approve the resolution approving the development agreement between the RDA and Rockworth Development. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Thank you, Chad. Okay, board.
I just want to make a couple of statements. One, I wish we had one more drawing like this one, except from the green side. You know, that would have been kind of a cool, because I didn't realize how big that green space is. I mean, that's huge. We look at it in the way it's in disarray right now with streets in the middle and stuff, it doesn't look big. But once you compare it to, you know, the Farmington Center, that I've been there and I thought, oh, this is a beautiful big space. Ours will be bigger. I'm really encouraged by that comparison. Thank you very much. And I'll save the other one for later. I'll let somebody else maybe ask something.
Thank you. Other comments for Chad?
Can you explain a word for me? Increment, what was the word, increment?
Taxing.
Tax increment generation, sure.
Increment generation,
yes. So this is an RDA area, and part of that RDA area is to create an opportunity for the use of what they call tax increment. And just to give a very quick summary of what that is, a long time ago, many years ago, decades ago, this area was created, and there was a value established of the property within the area, and a taxable value. And anything that has been gained from the time that area was created to now is the incremental difference between that previously established value and the value today. The agreement that we have with the taxing entities, which include the school district, Salt Lake County, some of the other smaller taxing entities within the county, allows us to use that incremental difference from that base value to today's value, taxable value, that tax generated, to reinvest in this area. So this project, just in and of itself, will include an increase in the property value, so will also increase that tax increment that's generated within this project boundary area, as well as what's being produced in the other areas of the RDA.
Chad, would you go back to that slide?
Tell me which one. This one?
That one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm doing the math on this. We're giving up basically about 9 million, right, in land and possible money we'll have to afford. But we're getting back, I mean, annual sales and property tax generation, that's a swag. That's a complete guess, right, as far as what that'll generate.
It is, but it's an informed guess. It's based on the types of buildings, the square footage. These are things that consultants are able to plug in and say, yeah, this is what we. So it's not just. It's
Smart
not
guys with
completely
calculators. I get it.
Right. It's a good informed estimate. Yep.
Gotcha. No, that's all I have.
Okay. Hang on, council, because I have several questions.
Board.
So the council is going to be voting on this development agreement, correct? Tonight?
Board. We're the RDA board.
The RDA board, yes. The RDA board is going to be voting on this tonight, correct?
Yes.
Okay. If the development agreement goes through, then the other 4 development agreements, which I've only gotten 3, I haven't gotten the 4th one, which I have not had time to read through it and come to you or your department with my questions. The council has gotten yet, okay. So my question is, will these, the ones that I got, will this be an automatic yes for this?
No, that's not an automatic yes. We're still looking at the terms of that. What you're agreeing, though, is that you will, in good faith, negotiate the terms of those agreements with the developer at that point.
So will this be an automatic yes, correct, on these 3 that I have? I don't have the 4th one.
No, again, it's not an automatic yes. It's an agreement that you will, in good faith, as an RDA board, negotiate the terms of those agreements that would implement that development agreement.
Okay. So the city is giving the following, and please go ahead and correct me if I have misunderstood any of this. We're giving $3 million for parking.
Yes, $3 million for help with the construction of the parking structure, yes. Yep.
Giving the employees parking lot for $1.21 million.
That .76 acre parcel, yes, 1.21, yep.
Giving Block 1, which is $3.69 million. Okay. Reimbursement for the gas line relocation costs, if applicable, subject to actual costs, which I see as an open checkbook for the RDA agency. But I was told that Enbridge will help with this gas line, but there is no contract, correct, on this, or just word of mouth?
We don't have a contract. We're working with Enbridge. They have as a large company, they have their own process they have to go through, but we, again, in good faith, they have indicated at this point that their preference is that they do that work themselves, that they want to make sure for quality assurance purposes that they want to do that work. So this agreement has been being negotiated for a number of months. As with any large organization, sometimes just getting in front of the Enbridge folks takes some time. We've been able to get in front of them, though, a couple of times now, and so we feel reasonably comfortable that this number, if it applies at all, will be very, very little. Remember, this number only applies if the developer does the work. It's not, whether we're going to have a discussion with Enbridge about, them completing that work and where that happens. But if they decide to do the work themselves, Enbridge, then this 1.5 million would not be dispersed to the developer at all.
Okay. So I have the understanding that if the developer walks away and Rockworth has bought the Dar building from the Brown family, then the city, or is it the RDA agency, will have to pay Rockworth back for the cost of the Dar building. Is that correct?
Yes, the RDA, in the development agreement, the RDA would purchase the Dar building at the developer's cost. If the development agreement was terminated because of one of those reasons we talked about, environmental or other encumbrances that we're not aware of at this point.
Okay. And the city didn't make Rockworth go to the Brown family or the Dar people about purchasing the Dar building. That was on their own doing, correct?
Yeah, as we've talked with them, we indicated that was a piece of the puzzle that we needed, and they were willing to go and negotiate individually. Yep.
So you did go talk to the Rockworth about purchasing the Dar building?
We've had discussions with them that is a piece of the property that the city doesn't own that we would like to have included in the development, certainly.
Okay. So I have a hard time thinking that the city is on the hook to reimburse Rockworth. But if you've already talked to Rockworth about purchasing the Dar building, I have a problem with that.
We've talked with Rockworth about that property being an important part of this Block 1 development. Mm-hmm. But that, their choice to go and negotiate with the Brown family is part of their effort to try to help redevelop this area.
And I have a problem with the RDA being on the hook for the Dar building. And so my next question, which I have not gotten a response back, is how much is in the RDA account right now? And I don't see Brenda here, so I do not know how much money is in the RDA account. So I would be curious on how much it is if we are on the hook for anything that is found underground, the gas line, and if everything goes south, the RDA agency is then on the hook for the Dar building. So I would like to know how much money is in the RDA account, and I don't have that question.
Yeah, the fund balance, I did have a chance to talk to Brenda. The fund balance sits just above $8 million right now, so we would have enough for, again, this project includes values up to a certain amount, but the actual expenditures, there's enough money in the fund balance to cover those.
Okay. And this is just something that I was thinking when I was reading this. has the city gotten a check from Triumph yet? Do you know?
The city has not closed on the
Okay.
property there yet.
Will that money go into the city or into the RDA account?
That goes into the RDA.
So
That's
whatever,
purchased.
that will go into the RDA account?
That's right.
Okay. Let's talk about due diligence. Could you tell me what that means, due diligence?
Yeah, it's a term of art in real estate. It means that someone has an opportunity to go and investigate a property to see if there's anything that they find to be concerning. When you're buying a new home, for example, a due diligence period gives you a chance to have your own home inspection, make sure that you feel like the home meets your needs. It's a typical in any real estate transaction to have that period. In a large commercial transaction like this, that's usually a longer period because there is a need to look at some of those items. In this particular case, there's been some initial environmental work done, but this gives an opportunity.
When was that done?
It's been done ongoing as these different projects have been proposed. The last one was done 2021? So 2021 was the last one, and they have different grades of these environmental studies. This one was a phase 1. I don't think we've ever gone to phase 2. Is that correct? We have just phase 1s at this point. So we've had that first initial look at this, but this would give them a chance to look a little bit deeper into those potential environmental concerns, if any. We'll know when we go through that due diligence process of whether or not there is something concerning there.
Okay, so why is the city not having, or the RDA, not having the developer do a due diligence on Block 1? Why are they not doing that?
They are, and that's that feasibility period. Before Rockworth and the city were to close on the property, there's a feasibility period, another name for due diligence, that they'll go through and do some of those investigations that we talked about.
And then they will have already bought the DAR building, correct?
They will, yeah.
And so if the due diligence goes south, then the RDA board has to pay them for the DAR building. Is that correct?
That's correct, per the development
Okay.
agreement, yep.
Okay, let me get a drink here.
Me too.
Thank you. Was there a due diligence done on the DAR building yet, or is that going to be done along with Block 1? When are they planning to do the due diligence on that building?
Yeah, they've been going through a due diligence period concurrent with our negotiations on the development agreement. So that due diligence period ends, I believe, April 11th for them.
April 11th? Okay, that's in 10 days, right?
That's correct.
So from this point on, the city won't have any developer do a due diligence then, correct? From this point on, because we have a gentleman that is doing the old smelter site, and the RDA board is making him do a due diligence. Can he come back and say to us, I'm not doing a due diligence because you're not having them do a due diligence. So can this person that is doing due diligence on the old smelter site come to the RDA board and say, I'm not doing it anymore?
They are doing a due diligence period. We're calling it a feasibility period, but it's has the same effect. They'll be going through a due diligence period with the property.
Okay. Is Rockworth here today?
Yes, we have representatives of Rockworth here.
Okay, could one of them come up here? I have a question to ask.
You betcha.
Thanks. Could you state your name?
Yes, Adam Davis with the Rockworth Companies. How are you
Okay.
tonight?
Hi, I think I remember meeting with you up in the mayor's office.
Yes, we did.
And I asked you a really important question. Did you ever receive this survey at all? Did you receive it?
Yes, we did.
And did you read through it?
I did not personally, but people in our office did read through the survey, yes.
Okay, and did you read how it said no residential?
We are aware that the survey said no residential, yes.
Okay, I was just wanted to know if you happened to read that.
We did.
That it said no residential.
Yep.
Because I have several citizens that are very, 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 very concerned about residential.
Sure.
And where it's coming in. And so, anyways, but I just wanted to check because I did not get that confirmed that you did get that survey.
We did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, so I have been told, Chad, apartments belong downtown. Maybe the city made some mistakes. I would accept this if the city didn't plop apartments all over the city. I agree the city needs to do something on Block 1. I definitely believe that, okay? But not where there is 150 apartments. Has anyone been down here at night? Because I do. I come down here a lot because of wingers. They have my popcorn, they have my wings, and they have my blackberry lemonade. And I go there at least twice a month. And I know it's busy. And my question is, how is Wingers, Ice House, Club 48, Tea Rose, Desert Star thriving without apartments here?
Well, we're happy for them, certainly.
Yeah.
We're excited that they're thriving. We want them to thrive. One important component with a downtown like this, and this is, you know, if you've ever visited a large city that doesn't have a residential component in their downtown, at night they do tend to become a ghost town. That becomes an area where people are sometimes even frightened to go because there's a lack of activity because the businesses have closed for the night. Many of you have probably visited some of those larger cities where you've seen that happen. I know I have. This is such a vital component to have some residential as part of this downtown. That brings activity to our downtown. It brings natural customers for those businesses that we're hoping will come as a result of this project. Thriving downtowns have residential components. You can see some of the work that's been done in some of our neighboring communities where they have built those residential units, and it creates that critical mass for a downtown to work and to function. So we think this is an important component. We think the developer has acknowledged the council and the public's concern about the densities of the residential that's proposed. The density is less than what is allowed by code. We've mentioned that before. That's an important thing to the community and the council, but we do think that this is an important part of creating that place. We're trying to create a place, and think of how wonderful that is for someone to live in this place and to go outside and to use that plaza space with their kids or their loved ones. That's what's going to make this a place, is having people here that live here, and that it's so important to having those eyes on the street, having people. That's going to create a better sense of safety to have housing in our downtown. So it's critically important. And again, I think this is an issue that's on everybody's minds right now: housing and affordability, and all these things that go with that. And we're keenly aware of that in our office, of course. We talk about this every day. But this is a good place for this housing. This is important for this project. It's important for the vitality of the downtown that you have envisioned. This is a great vision that you've had. This is a great vision that you've come up with as a community. And it's critical to have some housing to realize that vision.
And it's not a ghost town down here, because I was here, oh goodness, last Wednesday night, about 9 o'clock. I had to go buzz up to District 2 to get some things. FOE was parked all over. So I don't see this as a dead city area, because between all the businesses that are open at night, between Ice House, Club 48, Wingers, and FOE, and all these other, and Desert Star, I don't see it as a ghost town. And I don't know if residents will come into these businesses every single day if there's a taco place or a spaghetti place. I don't see residents going to those places and keeping them vitalized all the time. But my next question to you is about the parking and the stalls. No usage fee for city parking stall, but we are giving them $3 million for the 32 parking stalls, because that is in your parking agreement.
So you have a copy of the draft parking agreement that we've been working on with the developer.
Yeah.
That'll come to you again at a later date.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt. Is that?
No, go right ahead.
So I think I want to kind of walk back a little bit from the $3 million for the 32 parking spaces. That's the $3 million is for the parking structure. The developer has identified a need for some additional help. Structured parking is very expensive. I heard an estimate yesterday that said that 90,000 was sometimes the number the amount, $90,000 per space was the amount it cost. And I think that's maybe a little high for the market that we were in that particular discussion, but we know it's going to be expensive to build this parking. So it's not, we're not necessarily paying for 32 spaces. We're paying to help the developer, build a parking structure that allows for this type of development to go forward. And I think that's an important distinction, is that as part of that, they're going to agree to allow us to use 32 of those spaces. But our payment is to help them build that entire structure that's vital for creating the type of development that you all have envisioned down there, that to have enough parking for the businesses, to have enough parking for the public as they come to patronize those businesses, and for the people that are living there.
Okay, and then in it, it says reserve stalls, 3.2. It says from 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. So do the planning commissioners and those that work late at night for meetings, will they have to move their cars at 5:30 if the planning commissioners come in, or if we have some kind of event here and some of us are down there or whatever, do they have to move their vehicles out by 5:30?
No.
Or can they come in, the planning commissioners come in at 5:30 or whatever time, and still be able to use those parking stalls?
Yeah, at this point, the vision is that no one's going to get kicked out of at that time from the city. Those would potentially become available. This is part of that parking agreement, though, and I think if the council has other concerns and other questions about that you can bring these up to the developer. They're here to listen to those tonight, but we're not approving the parking agreement tonight. There'll be additional opportunities for the council to come up with what the specifics are about how the mechanics of that parking agreement will work. So what we've given you is a draft, and what that draft acknowledges, number one, there will be a time period where it's exclusively for use by the city, that parking would be only available for city purposes during that time period. Whether or not we have other time periods that the city says we need those spaces for this particular use for this time period, that'll be something that we could potentially include in the details of that parking agreement. But what we're trying to establish tonight again is that the developer's agreeing that 32 of these parking spaces will be available for city use, and then we can negotiate the details of that as we get further along in the process. That is that implementation appendage of this backbone of the development agreement.
Okay, and then this participation and reimbursement agreement, on the very first page, it talks the Boulevard Civic Center from districts. The form-based code, if I was missing, because I haven't missed any council or RDA meeting except for one when we were in the old city hall, I was throwing up, but has the form-based code been passed yet?
It has not.
Okay, so here we're asked that the Boulevard Civic Center form districts refer to the 2 form districts within the Murray City Center form-based codes. So if this hasn't been voted on yet, why are we looking at this one if the form-based code hasn't been passed yet?
So the participation agreement is not up for vote tonight. That'll come at a later date. So I want to just make sure that that's clear. But the second piece of that is that there is a provision in the development agreement that indicates that if there are tweaks, if there are things that we need to look at as that goes through the adoption process. I will say that there's been a very robust public process for the form-based code as well. We've had members of our RDA board serving in their capacity as counselors that have served on a steering committee. We've had lots of public open houses and public meetings where we've talked about that, and the developer has been given those standards. So we feel comfortable that we're to a point with that process that changes will be at this point minor. Now, that being said, it is still part of a public process. We'll need to go through those public hearings. But there is in the development agreement a provision that says that both the developer and the city acknowledge that there might be some tweaks to the project and potentially to the form-based code in response to the fact that it has not yet been fully adopted.
And if that happens, does this agreement then is null and void?
No, the agreement actually has a provision that allows you to come back and discuss those changes. It gives the council a chance to look at those and say, we think these are substantial, or we think these are minor. And it does not take away the council's legislative authority to make the decisions on the form-based code.
Okay, and because we haven't gotten that fourth one,
The fourth one, thank you for bringing that back up. I meant to address that. The fourth one is going to be essentially a carbon copy of that other disposition agreement. There's a city property, there's an RDA property. The only differences really are the size and the legal description, but those provisions that apply to one will apply to both. So we need to get those, put into that other agreement, but it's going to be essentially the same.
And I'm not putting anybody on the spot, but my words may ruffle some feathers, and I don't mean to do this. But when I got the 3 development agreements last night at 4:48, I did not have time. And I don't know of any other department that can bring in late work, and for me as an RDA board member, be able to read it and comprehend it and ask my questions to your department. And with the other one missing, I didn't have enough time. And today I had a health issue and I still didn't have time to read it. And I just felt like my hands are being tied to agree with this when I haven't had the time to read all the things that we were given at 4:48 last night until today. So that's where I stand on this. I wish I had more time. I wish I knew what was in the 3 more thoroughly, but just glancing at it, I don't.
Well, again, those other agreements will come before the council with your own review, your own ability to ask questions
And
about
that
those.
will come today?
No. Those will be at a future RDA meeting. You're not going to be asked to vote on any of those other agreements. Those, again, back to that first discussion, those are appendages of this backbone of an agreement. Those are there to implement the provisions of this development agreement. You'll have an opportunity to look at all those details with plenty of time to review, ask questions. We're not approving those tonight. The reason we gave those to you was to let you know that those have been actively worked on with the developer and with the city, that we've come to a point where we feel comfortable with the content enough to let you know that we are recommending to go forward with that backbone piece of this. Had we not felt comfortable with it, we wouldn't have brought this to you, but we do. So those will come later. You'll have plenty of time to look at those. The reason for that was to, again, let you know that we've got those to a state where we feel comfortable enough to go forward with this agreement tonight.
Okay. And if by chance the RDA or the council does not feel comfortable with this, then the city or the RDA has to pay for the DAR building.
Does not feel comfortable with what? I'm sorry?
If the RDA board or the council are not comfortable with these agreements, the 3 plus the 4 that we're missing, and Rockworth goes and buys the DAR building, what happens with everything, and do we end up paying for the DAR building?
So those agreements are anticipated to come to you in 2 weeks. That'll be before their anticipated closing on the DAR building. So the developer won't have closed on that building at that point.
So I just don't see the rush. I just don't see the rush. I just feel like I'm being pushed and pushed and pushed when I don't have everything in front of me.
Well, I would suggest that you have, again, that the most important components, the framework of that development agreement is before you. Those other agreements will come to you at a future date. Again, what you're agreeing to tonight is to a good faith negotiation of those agreements that will occur later on. You will have plenty of time to look at those. There are, as with any transaction, there are deadlines that the developer is anxious to meet. And so one of the reasons we're here tonight is because we want to get this done in a timely manner for them to move forward with some of the other agreements that they have.
And when are they purchasing the DAR building again? Do you know?
I'm going to turn over the developer for that specifics.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. Can you state your name again?
Adam Davis with Rockworth Companies.
Thank you.
No problem. As Chad mentioned, we have a due diligence period that we're in right now that expires on April 11th, and then our closing date is April 30th.
Okay. With the DAR building?
With the DAR building, yes. Okay. Our closing is tied to, and I think this is why we're discussing this, it's tied to the approvals of these documents, and again, to your concern, we don't want to close until we have those approvals, just so you're not put in a position where we've closed and then you say no, and then you've got to come back and purchase the DAR building.
So could you go back to the DAR people and say, listen, we're being pushed? The RDA board and council feels like they're being pushed right now. Could you please hold off?
No, we cannot. We've already gone back to them once to push back, and we have pretty specific deadlines with them. Otherwise, we would not be able to purchase their property, which is a key piece to this whole thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's about time to continue on.
I would like to make one more statement, if that's okay.
Okay, just, Adam, do you have any questions? Anything you would like to add?
For Chad, tonight we're just voting on the Rockworth project and not the green space project, right?
That's right. Yeah, the plaza information was given just as a way to let the council know what some of the planning efforts are in the downtown.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Adam. Yes.
If I were to make a simple analogy, if a young man comes up to me and says, I'd like to have a talk with you about your daughter, and says, I would like to take my relationship to the next level and ask for her hand in marriage, are you okay with that? Is this kind of what this is? We're saying we're good to move this relationship to the next level? And then we'll talk details about where the wedding's going to look like and what flowers we're going to use and things like that down the road.
I think that's as good of an analogy as I can come up with, yeah.
Okay. No shotgun here. We want to do it right. The young man's at the door. You know, he's talking to us, and he says, I'd like to take this to the next level. Are you guys okay with that? And we're going to vote on, are we okay with that? Okay.
And until it ends in a divorce.
Okay.
Can I ask the RDA board if we could have a continuation on this?
Would you like to put that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, I would like a motion to have a continuation of this vote until we have everything that we need as an RDA board, and I would like a continuation. I request that. And I ask that.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Of course not.
Sorry. No, I think the very important aspect on this is we are just voting on the relationship piece. That is all we are doing. All the other packets with the agreements later on. That's why. With all due respect.
Okay. Then I will entertain a motion for action item number 3.
I make a motion that we vote to enter into a developmental agreement between the RDA of Murray City and Rockworth Companies for the redevelopment of a property owned by Murray City and the RDA of Murray on 48 East and 48 South, including a substantial portion of the property referred to as Block 1.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Brooke, would you take the roll?
Mr. Hawk?
Aye.
Mr. Pickett?
Aye.
Ms. Cotter?
Nay.
Mr. Goodman?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. And this is the last item, so we are adjourned.